Junko Furuta? Furuta Junko was a Japanese high school student who was abducted, tortured, raped, and murdered in the late 1980s. Her murder case was named Concrete-encased High School Girl Murder Case. Joshikōsei konkurīto-zume satsujin-jiken, due to her body being discovered in a concrete drum. The abuse was mainly perpetrated by 4 teenage boys, Hiroshi Miyano, Ogura, Shinji Minato, and Yasushi Watanabe. Approximately 100 people knew about Furuta's captivity, but either neglected to report it or themselves were involved in the torture and murder. Most of the perpetrators were friends of the teenage boys, who were low-ranking members of the yakuza. Furuta was born in Misato, Saitama Prefecture. As a teenager, she attended Yashio-Minami High School and worked part-time during after-school hours. She lived with her parents, her elder brother, and her younger brother. 4. Prior to her abduction, she had accepted a job at an electronics retailer, where she planned on working after graduation. 5. Furuta was a serious student in high school, with high grades and very infrequent absences. She had been working part-time at a plastic molding factory twice a week since October 1988 to save up money for a graduation trip she had planned. On the day of her abduction, she was said to have been looking forward to the final episode of a Japanese drama series, Tonbo, Ja. 6. On November 25, 1988, Miyano and his friend Nobuharu Minato wandered around Misato with the intention of robbing and raping local women. 7. At 8:30 p.m., they spotted Furuta cycling home after she finished her part-time job. Under Miyano's orders, Minato kicked Furuta off her bicycle and immediately fled the scene. 7. Miyano, under the pretense of it being a coincidence that he had witnessed this attack, approached Furuta and offered to walk her home safely. 7. Furuta, accepting this offer, was unaware that Miyano was leading her to a nearby warehouse, where he revealed his yakuza connections. Miyano threatened to kill her as he raped her in the warehouse and once again in a nearby hotel. From the hotel, Miyano called Minato and his other friends, Ogura and Yasushi Watanabe, and bragged to them about the rape. Ogura reportedly asked Miyano to keep her in captivity in order to allow numerous people to sexually assault her. The group had a history of gang rape and had recently kidnapped and raped another girl who was released afterward. 7. Around 3 a.m., Miyano took Furuta to a nearby park, where Minato, Ogura, and Watanabe were waiting. 7. They had learned her home address from a notebook in her backpack and told her that they knew where she lived, and that yakuza members would kill her family if she attempted to escape. She was overpowered by the 4 boys, and taken to a house in the Ayase district of Adaki, where she was gang raped. 7. The house, which was owned by Minato's parents, soon became their regular gang hangout. 8. On 27th of November, Furuta's parents contacted the police about their daughter's disappearance. In order to discourage further investigation, the kidnappers forced her into calling her mother. She was forced to say that she had run away, but was safe and staying with a friend. 9. Furuta was also forced to ask her mother to stop the police investigation into her disappearance. When Minato's parents were present, Furuta was forced to pose as the girlfriend of one of the kidnappers. 9. They later dropped this pretense when it became clear that Minato's parents would not report them to the police. 8. The Minatos stated that they did not intervene because they were aware of Miyano's yakuza connections and feared retaliation, and because their own son was increasingly violent towards them. 8. Minato's brother was also aware of the situation, but did nothing to prevent it. Furuta was held captive in the Minato residence for 40 days, during which time she was abused, raped and tortured. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. The group responsible also invited and encouraged their other yakuza friends to torment Furuta. It was later said that over 100 men had committed the rape and torture. 19. According to their trial statements, the 4 of them raped her over 400 times, beat her, starved her, hung her from the ceiling and used her as a punching bag, dropped barbells onto her stomach, forced her to eat live cockroaches and drink her own urine, forced her to masturbate in front of them, and forced her to dance and sing to songs while being beaten. They inserted foreign objects into her vagina and anus, including a lit light bulb and fireworks. They burned her vagina and clitoris with cigarettes and lighters, and her eyelids with hot wax. They also tore off her left nipple with pliers and pierced her breasts with sewing needles. Furuta was said to slip into unconsciousness because of the repeated assaults, leading them to dunk her head into a bucket of water each time to continue the torture. 7, 8, 9, 20. When her body was found, Orname and C bottles were stuck up her anus and her face was unrecognizable. 21. She was also found to be pregnant, despite the severe damage to her uterus. 22. Some of the accomplices have been officially identified, including Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ihara, who were charged with rape after their DNA was found on and inside the victim's body. 7. Ihara was allegedly bullied into raping Furuta. After he left the Minato household, he told his brother about the incident. His brother subsequently told their parents, who contacted police. 7. 2 police officers were dispatched to the Minato house, however, they were informed that there was no girl inside. 7. The police officers declined an invitation to look around the house, believing the invitation alone was sufficient proof that there was nothing untoward to be found. 7. Both officers faced considerable backlash from the community. Had they indeed searched the house and located Furuta, her ordeal would have only lasted 16 days and she may well have recovered from her injuries. The 2 officers were fired for failing to follow procedure. 7. At the beginning of December, Furuta attempted to call the police. 7. However, she was discovered by Miyano before she could say anything. When the police phoned back, Miyano informed them that the original emergency call was a mistake. 9. As punishment for contacting the authorities, Furuta's attackers doused her legs and feet in lighter fluid and set them on fire. They also pushed a large bottle into her anus, causing severe bleeding. She reportedly went into convulsions. During their trial, they stated that they thought she was faking a seizure, so they set her on fire again. 9. She survived these injuries and continued to be raped and tortured. Furuta is reported to have asked her captors on multiple occasions to kill her and get it over with, but they refused. Instead, they forced her to sleep outside on the balcony during winter time and locked her in a freezer. 9. One of the kidnappers told the court that her hands and legs were so badly damaged that it took her over an hour to drag herself downstairs to the toilet. 9. Due to the severity of the torture, she eventually lost bladder and bowel control and was subsequently beaten for soiling the carpets. She was also unable to drink water or consume food and would vomit after each attempt. 9. For which she received further beatings. The brutality of the attacks drastically altered Furuta's appearance. Her face was so swollen that it was difficult to make out her features. Her body was also severely crippled, giving off a rotting smell that caused the 4 boys to lose sexual interest in her. As a result, the boys kidnapped and gang raped a 19-year-old woman who, like Furuta, was on her way home from work. On January 4, 1989, after losing a game of mahjong, Hiroshi Miyano decided to vent his anger on Furuta. At this point, Furuta was barely alive. 23. Out of frustration, the boys beat her with an iron barbell, kicked and punched her, and placed 2 short candles on her eyelids, burning them with a hot wax. 7. They made her stand, and struck her feet with a stick. At this point, she fell onto a stereo unit and collapsed into a fit of convulsions. 7. Since she was bleeding profusely, and pus was emerging from her infected burns, the 4 boys covered their hands in plastic bags, which were taped at the wrists. 7. They continued to beat her and dropped an iron exercise ball onto her stomach several times. They poured lighter fluid onto her thighs, arms, face, and stomach and once again set her on fire. 7. Furuta allegedly made attempts to put out the fire, but gradually became unresponsive. 7. The attack reportedly lasted 2 hours. Furuta eventually succumbed to her wounds and died that day. 7.